Alright, welcome back to another video. So if you watched my previous video on installing an aftermarket Joying stereo in my 2010 Honda Ridgeline, you're kind of caught up with what I'm doing here today. But if you haven't watched that video, there'll be a link below. You should see it on your screen right now. So long story short, I installed this Joying Android double-din stereo in my Ridgeline. You can see this is how it looks out of the vehicle, and it looked really good. And I decided that I wanted to try out another Joying stereo, same size screen, 8-inch. The difference is this one has buttons, and you see not only does it have volume knob and a tune knob, but it's got a home button, a back button, music, navigation, band, which is your AM, FM radio, phone, mode, and dim button. So it has capacitive buttons, but the main thing is it has this physical knob because I like to have an actual volume control. You can push it to mute it really quick. I like having that volume control. And I like how this looked. Has a slightly curved glass screen. It runs Joying's newest Android 10 operating system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get this to fit in this setup here, an upgrade. So to see how I installed this in my Ridgeline, you'll have to watch that other video. So now I've removed it. The nice thing is all these stereos, whether you have the old Intel style or the new Android 10 one, they all use the same wiring harness. So our connections on the back are the same. Our subwoofer port, steering wheel controls, everything like that is plug and play. So I don't have to change anything with the wiring harness. All I need to do in this case is this is a single DIN instead of a double DIN. So I'm gonna have to find out how to mount that in there. I'm gonna have to mount this screen on here now. So I'll probably remove some more material. I went ahead before I took it out and I made a few marks with a pencil. That's where the dashboard for the Ridgeline snaps into place. And this just fits inside of it. So it should fit nicely, just barely. So I have to get that put in that frame to where it will fit perfectly. All right, so that's the goal for today. I'm gonna get this installed in this frame right here. That way it's ready to put right back in the Ridgeline. And then I will actually go through the software with you on this new radio. It's pretty exciting, some of the features it has. It works really well. There's a few little minor annoyances though. So we'll talk about all that here in a minute. All right, so now I've got everything disassembled here. Here's our new screen. This is gonna be the same thing if you're starting with scratch with this Dremel Dash Kit. So you can see the little pencil marks we made. And if I kind of set the screen in place, it's just barely going to clear. But at the bottom, we're gonna have it completely flush with the line here. Okay. So what I need to do is I need to remove more of this material. And obviously we don't want to remove too much because we don't want to see, obviously, behind here. But we need to remove enough that this little lip all the way around can sit down inside of there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some marks. Obviously, we know where this needs to be. We'll measure this distance here. I'll come down from this line enough that it will be open, and then I will take more of this material out so I can get the screen sitting flush. All right, so I've used a pencil. I've drawn an outer edge, which is the outside edge of here. And then I've got a rough estimate of the square I need to cut. It will still give me a lip. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. Just remember, You can always take more off, but you can't put it back. So unless you want to buy another one of these, you know, take off a little less than you need and then go a little bit bigger. And I'm going to use a Dremel tool for this with a cutoff wheel. There's different ways to do it. Dremel with a cutoff, it will kind of melt the plastic a little bit. You just got to be careful. I would definitely recommend wearing a pair of safety glasses when you do this. All right, so just to give you an example, like I said, it melts the plastic, but if you let it dry, you can then just break off. You can see, the key is this can get away from you kind of quickly, so make sure you stay under your lines. Being held on in a few little places here. Just gotta figure out what's holding it up. Okay. That's nice and be careful to clean this up. You don't want to scratch this thing all up where you're gonna see it. Take your fingers, and you can see the stuff just pops right off. Alright, so once we get all that off, we'll go try out the radio and see if it fits flush in there. Alright, so here's where we're at. It definitely fits. Plenty of room. A little bit of a gap at the top here, but that's because this plastic is flexible. Like that. You can see we're gonna have to get it mounted, so you're gonna remember we're inside of our pencil lines where our dashboard snaps in around it. Okay, so now we're gonna actually take this part here, we'll connect it, and then we'll see where this needs to be positioned, and then we may have to create our own holes here depending on where it's at, and that's how we will secure it all in place. All right, so I've got it in there. I'm happy with how everything looks. What I had to do was over here on this side, where this slot is, I just had to enlarge that slot a little bit with the drill bit. And then I put a screw back here. And you have to be very, very careful because these, especially these single DIN radios, they're not really meant to have screws put through the side. They're meant to be mounted with a sleeve like that. So you have to use a very shallow screw and look through the hole before you put a screw through it to make sure there isn't a circuit board right in there. So it's very important. I used just some very shallow DIN screws to mount this. But as you can see, it's nice and flush. It does go down at an angle. It has to go down at an angle in order for it to work because the Ridgeline dashboard is angled like this. So now in my case, it's just as easy as I can go plug everything in, make sure the dashboard fits back on there. If this is your project that you're installing your Ridgeline, again, you want to watch my first video. I show you exactly how to wire up the wiring harness and exactly how to bring in your steering wheel control wires and all that other stuff. All right, so here as it looks, everything plugged in. So I think we should just clear. I'm getting excited. I like how this looks. It's really going to take up that space nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and get the dash put back in. Just make sure you remember to connect your passenger airbag light slash flasher switch behind there. I forgot the first time. And I had an airbag light on and I couldn't figure it out. It's because I forgot to connect that connector. And then obviously we got the million other connectors to put back on when we're putting the dash back on. Well, I could not have planned that any better. I am really pleased with that, how that fits. It just slid over that. And that looks really, really sharp. Let's go ahead and try it out here. Make sure everything works. Okay. Okay, so that works. I'll go ahead and make sure our backup camera works. This is our little override here. Okay, that works good. Alright, so we're set up. Everything's installed, everything works good. Now it's time to go through the software. Alright guys, so here we are. We're talking about the software now. So we've got the unit installed. It looks really good. It works really well. So I'll show you. It's got the quick boot feature. So as soon as you turn the key forward, it comes on. If it's been sitting for a long time, and it'll go into a deeper hibernation, and then eventually it will completely shut down. That way it doesn't kill the battery on your car. When it goes through a full boot, it'll just take about 20 to 30 seconds to boot up. During that time, it will show, you know, whatever logo you want. You can select a Honda logo in your Ridgeline, and I can show you what that looks like actually here, just by simulating it. Alright, so I press the reset button. I've selected the Honda logo. I'll show you how to do that. This is what it looks like. While it's booting up, you can put it in reverse, and it will activate the backup camera. So that's good. And here's what we're presented with. This is their screen on initial startup. Alright, so a few things right off the rip. I'll show you how to customize this to get it to work with the Ridgeline. These are widgets on the display here. All this stuff is just standard Android stuff. You can move around however you want. This widget always shows the temperature in Celsius. So it doesn't really work very good, so I always start by getting rid of it. This widget is for the built-in music player. It always shows this The Police band group on it, so no matter what song is playing. So I don't really like that widget either, so I started by getting rid of both those. All the wallpaper can be changed just by pressing and hold on it, and you can change your wallpaper. You know, you can choose the built-in ones. You can download live wallpapers. There's a whole bunch of options there. So this is all the stuff that's, you know, built in. It says on-device wallpapers. So, you know, the sky's the limit. It's stock Android. Okay. Speaking of stock Android, this is your launcher. If we go to our apps, these are all, you know, regular Android apps and then widgets. So a lot of times I'll take the radio widget, just press and hold, and I will put that on the screen here because I listen to the radio a lot. And it just takes you into the radio app itself. And if you hit home, you can control your radio settings from here like this. Okay. Again, the reason I said I really like this stereo is because of the buttons. I'm a button guy. I like to be able to just reach up here and control the volume real quick. Also, you know, if you get a call or something, you can just hit the mute button real quick. I just like having that functionality. So this is a tune button over here. Obviously you have to have the radio up. It has home, back, music, navigation, phone, band, mode, and dim. You can customize the navigation to whatever you want. The first time you click on it, it'll let you pick the app. So you can download any offline navigation you want. You could use the built-in Google Maps, which is just standard Google. You do have to be connected to the internet, so you have to share your Wi-Fi from your phone or something like that. Obviously, if you don't want, or if you don't have a Wi-Fi hotspot, you can just use Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, which I'll show you in a minute. So anyway, let's go ahead and we'll go into our initial settings that we want to figure out. So we'll click settings. You can either click right there, or you can pull down twice, click the settings icon, and we're going to go through some initial setup. So the only thing you really need to get configured right off the rip is your steering wheel controls. There's a couple different ways to do that. You can actually do it from out here. Just click here, the steering control button. So I'm going to clear everything out. This is what you'll see when you first get it. On the Ridgeline, all I have to do, each button is programmable. Unfortunately, they don't have dual programmability, so if you hold the button down, it won't give you another function. Some aftermarket Android stereos do that. On the Joyings, they do not do that. So if I press and hold down the volume button and then press the volume button on here, it's programmed. So I'm going to press and hold the steering wheel button. So I'm going to press and hold the volume up on the steering wheel, hold it, and then tap volume up. Okay, I'm going to press and hold the channel down button, channel down. Press and hold channel up, next. The mode button, you can make it whatever you want. If we wanted it to work like the factory one, it would probably be like a source, you know, so you could scroll through different sources. You can make it whatever you want. You can make it, you know, your Bluetooth, you know, which is a good option. You know, your speaker button, your voice button. So if I press and hold that, I'll do that. And then I'll just hit the check mark to save it and get out of here. So if I hit that top mode button on my steering wheel, you can see it brings up the Google Voice screen. So just something to keep in mind. A lot of people make it the back button, home button, whatever you want. The built-in apps, you know, you have your Bluetooth music, auxiliary, which is your aux input, which I did wire up in my case, so I utilized the stock auxiliary port over here. And I'll show you how to do that in my other video. Alright, back to the settings, this is what I was talking about. So if we go through our settings, the first thing you get is Wi-Fi. This is where you can go in and look for a Wi-Fi network, okay? You know, whether it's your hotspot or your home Wi-Fi, when you just want to update stuff while it's sitting in the driveway. Data usage, if you use the built-in and SIM info, this is all for the built-in 4G card reader. So I'm not going to be using any of that. The more button just takes you to mobile networks, so this would be just like on a phone. There's VPN, airplane mode, settings like that. Device settings, this is display. This is where you can change wallpaper. Auto black screen. So that is, the screen will automatically blank, kind of like a screensaver after a certain amount of time. Brightness level, you can set your nighttime brightness, which is like when you turn on your headlights, and your daytime brightness level there. You can also pull down on here and change the brightness with the slider there. And on this unit, the dim button, by pressing that, it changes the levels of brightness as well. Alright, sound, this is an important one. This is where you can turn on your loudness, which just boosts your high and low audio. Separate amp control, so in my case I have the Bazooka subwoofer installed, which I showed how to do in my other video. You can turn the amp on and off. This power conditioning is just basically the ratio to your volume control. So, you know, if I turn it down, the volume will have to be higher to be louder, if that makes sense. Subwoofer controls, you can actually turn up and down independently the volume of the subwoofer output. This is your low pass cutoff, which I want to full know what was there, and then the high pass cutoff. Okay. Equalizer. One of the nicest things about this unit is its equalizer. It does have a bunch of different presets that you can obviously pick, but I always program it myself. Oops, I like the way it sounds. So it has a virtual surround type setup. What this basically is like a time delay. So if we had music playing and you turn it on, you can see front left, front right, rear left, rear right in centimeters. It's the delay. It's kind of a neat effect, you know, if you're watching a movie or something. I don't really use it though. You can do a bass enhancement on the front and rear speakers independently. I don't use that either. Something to play around with. Sound field, this is just your fade and your balance. You know, I just always keep it right in the middle. The bass filter, this is actually useful. You can kind of cut off your front speakers or your rear speakers. So in my case I have a subwoofer, so I don't need full range bass going to the front speakers because that just causes them to distort. So I could, you know, put a slight cut off of just the lowest frequencies, and then that way the front speakers just driving some of the higher frequencies like that. And you know, that's kind of like how we would use that. So that's it for device, general settings, brake wire for video and motion. So that's, you won't be able to watch video unless you're stopped and the parking brake's turned on. So if you want to be able to watch video, make sure that's off. auto start navigation. I think that it would just start your navigation app as soon as you turn on the car. I don't like that. On-screen display time will always put the time on the display no matter what you're watching. So that can be useful, but not in my case. And then some of these other settings, so this has to do with the backup camera. So you can mirror the image if your camera is the wrong way. You can mute the audio when you're in reverse, completely cut it off. I have it so it just brings the audio down a little bit, and you can set that right here with the slider. Backlight control. The small light control means when I turn on my headlights, it's going to turn on these lights and dim the radio. You can have that off, or time control, so at night it automatically turns on, you know, like at sunset. I don't know why you would do that. Maybe if you didn't have a dimmer, you know, control in a different car. Default boot volume, you can either turn this on or off. Every time you turn on the stereo, it will start at a preset volume. I actually like that because if I forget to turn it down, it's not blasting when I turn the car back on. GPS just means that it will blend the built-in navigation app with the whatever's playing, the audio, and you can set the scale. The sound mixing scale, that's what that is there. You can play around with that, see what sounds best. Lantern settings is these buttons on the side here. To get them to match the Ridgeline interior, this is basically, if I just click the white, it just blasts them all and it's not actually a white. So I got it as close as I could, and that's basically how it looks if you want to kind of copy that. Alright. Steering wheel setting, that we already covered that. You can get to it out there, it's the same thing right here if we go into that. This is where you select your navigation app. Like I said, the Navi app. There's a launcher selection, but there is only one launcher to pick from. Factory settings, password 3368. This is, you can do a touchscreen check. It will go through that the first time you start the car. Actually, not this one. It'll have you calibrate it, but you can see this is all this is here. You know, just want you to touch the buttons, and it's like a little game. Alright. The original car agreement. This is for the CAN bus system, which I do not have connected in the Ridge on here. If you did, a lot of these things would come into play. But some of these it also will work even not connected to CAN, like through your reverse parking lines, so you can actually turn them on. So what that would look like is if I put it in reverse, you can see it added another set of lines. I just use the ones that are built into the camera. So I'll turn those off. The static trace versus reversal, track reversal. So some cars, when it's connected to the CAN bus, the Ridgeline is not one of them though, but it would actually move that, you know, your parking lines when you turn the steering wheel. None of that really applies in this. All this other stuff, none of this applies. So that was the original car agreement. The car model, again, that's CAN bus related. Antenna normally on means that the output, if you have a powered antenna, which the Ridgeline does do, in this case it only turns on when the radio app is opened. You could have it so it's always on, I guess, if you needed that for some reason. Right here, the audio reversing format. If you have a digital camera, an AHD camera, you can turn that on or off. I do not. In fact, I don't know why that's on, truthfully. I guess it didn't matter because it didn't. But if you do have a digital camera, you turn that on. Digital camera has one drawback that I'll talk about when I get into my negative aspects section of this video. So this here, next thing, the boot screen logo. This is where you pick, you know, in our case we picked a Honda. So when it does go through that long reboot, you can have whatever you want come on there. There's a bunch of different options. You know, obviously this isn't a Honda here, so I picked the Honda. This panel key learning, that's for these buttons here. They are all programmed from the factory, so unless you have a problem, I wouldn't do this, but you can custom assign. So let's say you want to make, instead of this being the back button, you want to make it, you know, the mute button or the hang up button. You can reset these and then custom program these to whatever you want. So a lot of this other stuff. I'm just going over the stuff that's important. Volume balance settings is kind of important. So if you notice that your radio is way louder than the Bluetooth music,
comparatively. You know, like when you turn off the music, you can kind of, you know, offset that so the radio is quieter, which a lot of times the radio is louder. You can kind of offset that by going through there. Let's see, anything else? All this stuff like video output settings, you can't change that. The screen is what the screen is. OBDs for if you have an optional, you know, dongle plugged in. I don't have that. User settings, kind of already covered some of this. Location, you know, if you want to give your location access to apps. Security, it's like your Google Play. This is just like standard Android type stuff right here. Language, you know, your keyboards, your Google settings. Sign into your Google account. We'll talk more about that later. Backup and reset. I think that's the same password. Yeah, if you want to do a factory data reset. Again, Google accounts, application settings. A lot of just standard Google stuff. Okay, last thing is system. So your date and time. So you can use network provided time from GPS. I had to set my time zone manually, so I had to turn that off and set it for my time zone, and I also turned off 24-hour time format. Accessibility. So this is more just like Android features. You know, you can change some of the stuff on the screen, like text to speech, and it read it to you and turn on magnification and stuff like that. Developer options, again, it's the same 3368. I really wouldn't mess around in here unless you know what you're doing. Don't touch anything in here. I'll leave it at that. This is your about screen. Just shows you, you know, your Android 10, you know, WeHa, and then you might need some of this other information if you ever want to update the system. So just keep that in mind. This is where it's at. And the device info, it just shows you the IMEI of the two, supposedly the two SIM card slots. The radio only has one that's accessible to you on the back. In the USA, it doesn't really support Verizon and AT&T, only a couple bands, so it will work, but it's kind of buggy from what I understand. Alright, so now we're done with the settings. We're going to walk through some of the operation of the unit, and I'll show you how Apple CarPlay and Android Auto work. I personally love the diversity, I guess we'll call it, of one of these aftermarket Android stereos. So you're going to pay more for a Joying brand or something similar, but it's worth the extra money. You know, you can buy the $100 Android radio, and you're going to get not very good sound and not very good processor specs, not a lot of memory, and it's going to lag, and it's not going to be a very good experience. Whereas when you get one of these modern Joying units, it's got 4 gigabytes of RAM, 64 gigabytes of onboard flash storage, and now some of the new ones even have 128 gigabytes, so it can handle Android 10. The multitasking, it can do a lot of cool stuff. It can do split screen if you're into that. Like I said, I like using Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. I have an iPhone and a Samsung Galaxy phone, and I use them both. So I'm going to show you both of those. Now, I did have one of Joying's Android 8.1 Intel units, and it worked very good, and it used the Z-Link app and for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And I had a few complaints with the app. One of the biggest complaints was you can't use the FM radio and be in there, you know, using Google Maps or the Apple Maps and Apple CarPlay. As soon as you go into that, it cuts off the radio. I really wish they would fix that situation. It has carried over into the Android 10 units that now have this new CarLink app that replaces Z-Link. That issue still exists. So that's one thing I do not really care for. But they have done a lot of work with this new app. It's called CarLink. It's just it's much quicker to connect. So I'll show you first. We'll go ahead and connect the Samsung Galaxy phone here. So you can see it brings up our map here. We've got Pandora. We've got whatever you want. You know, it's just standard Android Auto. It's very responsive, snappy. Maps are really, really good. Really crisp on the display. Now, one thing that I do not care for about the Android 10, this CarLink app, is it has reoriented Android Auto to be like Apple CarPlay. So normally Android Auto, this whole bar right here would be across the bottom of the screen. I don't know why they made this change. It actually is taking functionality away from the radio. So you used to be able to, like if I was in Maps and I was listening to music in Pandora, there was a set of navigation buttons that are along the bottom here that you can, you know, change tracks, and it will also show you the album artwork and the title in the newest versions of Android Auto. So by them changing, I don't know if it's just a resolution issue, the DPI, there's some kind of setting in this app that's flipping that bar up and down and going this way, where normally, you know, it would be along the bottom. So I do not like that. I don't know why they did that. Maybe they could put in some kind of setting to change that in the future. That would be really, really helpful in my opinion. But besides that, which is just purely a visible thing, it works very well. So obviously, you know, navigate to Lowe's.
Lowe's Home Improvement. All right.
You know, it's standard Android experience. It works really good. Sounds really good. No issues at all. You know, not a whole lot for me to say here. Yeah. Another problem with the older ones with Z-Link, they had some volume balance issues. So the Google voice would sound overly loud and distorted, and did not sound good when you're in Android Auto. So they have fixed that, and now it sounds good. So I can say that that's been fixed. Like I said, I'm overall very pleased with Android Auto. Okay. So we'll go ahead and switch out here. Okay, so it did not allow me to just disconnect my Android and plug back in the Apple. I had to shut the app down and restart the app, and now it works fine. So it didn't like switching phones, hot swapping phones like that. That was the issue. So I shut the app down and restarted it, now it's fine. So immediately fires up Apple CarPlay. Again, this is pretty standard fare. Yeah. Alright, so same thing. If you're used to Apple CarPlay, you know, this is like the same as it would be in any vehicle. I'd set up, so that's just, you know, to exit right here. This button basically, hold on, let me fix that first. So if I click that, that's just to take you out of there. That's what that is. Back in here. So you can see everything works good. So you can have, you know, your simultaneous map with your Pandora playing or whatever other music app you want. It does switch to night mode, not with the headlights. It switches, you know, based on the phone, you know, the time setting, like usual. But everything works really good. With here, same thing. It's got Siri support, so navigate to Lowe's. As you can see,
head northeast toward Terran Trace.
Everything works good. So there's not a whole lot to talk about except that it works great. So CarPlay, if you have an iPhone, you're not going to have any problems at all. You know, again, you can't listen to the radio while this is on, which is my biggest complaint. But the Android Auto works great. Again, though, they switched it so it's like this, the up and down. I don't really care for that, but everything overall works really well. It's very quick. So again, I like to reorganize these a little bit different. So I'm going to move some of these. If you move them up here, it will actually show you the name. If they're down here, they're kind of like static. You can actually have multiple screens, but so like if I put the settings on here, so you can see it, like the wording disappears. So you just got to play it around, put it how you want it. Alright, so let's talk about a few cons just real quick. So a couple bugs that I have found that are probably software related. One of them is probably hardware related. So first we'll talk about the backup camera. So I went ahead and installed an HD, it's supposed to be a 1080p backup camera. I installed a regular one first, which I showed in my backup camera video, and just a standard resolution. And when you get to these nice HD displays, it doesn't look quite as crisp. I'll show you again. When you put it in reverse, I mean, the screen looks good, but it could be better, is my point. So I bought a HD camera and installed it, and it works great as long as the radio's on. But remember what I told you, if your car sits a long time and it goes through that cycle where it completely shuts down, when you go to start the car and it goes through that long reboot, you go to put it in reverse and the screen would be just a digital scrambled mess. It did not work. And the reason it didn't work is because I think when it is in that mode where it's booting up, it just reverts to it's called the MCU, which is just the controller board, which is separate from Android, to display the video. And I think that only supports the CVBS, or just the standard camera output. It doesn't support the HD output. So as soon as you got another operating system and you put it in reverse, you'd have your HD picture. So that's an issue that needs corrected. I mean, even using Joying's own HD backup camera, I had that issue, which I just showed you as an example on the screen there. Okay, the second issue I already talked about, the Android Auto, the orientation thing, that's not correct. I'm sure that could be easily fixed with a software update. So nothing major there. Again, the third thing, also Android Auto, Apple Carplay rated, you should be able to listen to the radio and then go in there and use the navigation, or actually listen to any other of the audio sources. That's kind of like a standard thing on any of the OEM applications of Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, or any like Kenwood, Sony, Pioneer. So that's something I think could probably be fixed with software. They need to look into doing that. So that's really all the cons I have over this. They did fix a few things over the Android 8.1 radios. Like I told you, some of the volume balance issues. There still is the problem where supposedly you can't make a call directly from Google Voice. So if your contact on here, if you told it call Brother Joe, it wouldn't work. I don't know why they still haven't fixed that. One other big bug, though, I just remembered that we need to talk about. So if you go into the Bluetooth app right here, so you have two Bluetooth apps. You have this one, which is where you link your phone, and then you can download your contacts and you can make calls and all that stuff. And then you have the Bluetooth music app, which is where once it's paired, you can stream music from your phone, anything you have on your phone. So once you have that paired, if you then sign in, like let's say you want to go to the Play Store, and then you then sign into your Google account. If it's the same Google account that you have on your phone, so let's say you have an Android phone, and that's where your contacts are stored, for some reason there's a bug in this Joying system where it will delete most of your contacts out of your phone. So I had that happen to me, where all but 10 of my contacts got deleted out of my phone. Now luckily I was able to go into the Google contacts in the settings on a desktop computer, and I was able to restore them all. I was able to that's the nice thing about Google, they kind of save all your info, so if something like that happens, you can go back and restore it. So I was able to restore it and fix it. Now Joying, their solution is, they said, disable contact syncing on the head unit. And they said that will prevent that from happening. So I'm not really sure that that is a great solution, honestly. They really should fix the problem of why it does that. What I recommend doing is what I'm doing is I created another Google account just for this head unit, or just for any head unit that I have. And you can then copy your contacts over from your other Google account if you'd like. That way, if they get deleted or something happens like that, you don't care. It won't mess with your actual phone. And then I can download, apps from the Play Store and watch YouTube and all that on the other account without worrying about it messing up anything. Which is just probably a good idea anyway, just for security reasons. There's no evidence that there's any kind of security concerns with these head units, but it's probably just a good idea anyway, just to use a separate Google account. The only problem with that is, let's say you've already paid for a paid app on your other Google account, you won't be able to have it on here. You have to rebuy it. So that's the only issue I can think of with that situation. But that's the cons of the radio. So what are the pros? The pros, obviously, the looks. It's got a great display. In our case, with the Honda Ridgeline here, it's hard to find a radio that looks good and fits. All the aftermarket, kits, they just take up a little tiny area. Then you have the big bezel area around here. So I like how this fills up this whole factory radio area. It looks very OEM. There's no Joying branding on this unit. The Android 10 is a definite improvement. They actually boosted it looks like the output on the power circuit and the amplifier. I went from an Android 8 unit to this Android 10 unit, and I can say it actually does sound a little bit better. The old one sounded really good, but this just seems to have overall more power. It does have a 15 amp fuse in the back versus a 10 amp fuse on the old ones, so it's fused for a higher current draw, which means that it's capable probably of more output power. They did also add the optical digital audio out, so they had the coaxial digital audio output on these units. If you're into, like high-end audio and you want to have a digital connection to an amplifier, and now they added the optical, so it's getting better and better with each revision. Software they try to fix, there's usually like at least one revision, and then each year before they release a new upgraded unit. So I do like the setup. I explained the few little bugs that it has. Besides that, though, it's very, very solid. I'm being very picky because, that's what I do. But it works good. Overall, I'm very pleased with it. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments. I could go into a little more detail on some of the apps if you'd like. This has been kind of a quick overview. A lot of these, all the Joying units are the same. If you watch other videos on YouTube about Joying Android head units, they all come with the same software, like the video player, which, like I said, the screens are HD. They're all very, very nice. Your music player, which not the best music player, just because there's not a whole lot of ways to categorize stuff except for to put them into favorites playlist. That's really about all you can do. You can break it down by folders, which is good. Go into different folders, so it's not horrible, I'll say that. But then I showed you the auxiliary input. Like I said, the Bluetooth music, again, you can stream from your phone. There's many different ways. We talked about versatility, diversity, gallery, so if you have pictures on your head unit, it's a lot of album artwork and stuff, but pictures, any kind of pictures you have, you can look at that. You can bring like a USB flash drive or a USB hard drive. You could have all your movies. There is no physical DVD players anymore. That stuff's kind of going away, but everything's digital, so you can stream from YouTube. All your passengers can watch any of your DVDs that you've ripped onto a digital format, like an MP4. All that stuff can be streamed through the video player. You can download any other video player you want from the Google Play Store. So lots and lots of options. It does have a built-in file manager, which is nice. So you can go through and when you're copying the stuff from your drives, it makes it easy to work with. Overall, great package. Again, if you have any questions, be sure to leave a comment below. If you like the video installation, if it helped you out, be sure to like the video, subscribe for more. I'm always doing kind of all over the place, but right now I'm doing a lot of work on my Ridgeline, so I'm uploading a lot of Ridgeline videos. Alright, well, hopefully I helped you out. Until next time, we'll see you later.